motion made on March 13th, and that was a motion to, and that motion was made to put on hold the paving project, waiting to see until what happens with Measure 2. I think at this time we would like to revisit that motion. Do you want to rescind? Do you want to keep that motion in place, or? Okay.
I just want them to know about it.
Okay. At March 13th meeting, there was a motion made to, if the project goes forward, that the paving project will be put on hold until what's decided with that Measure 2 measure, whichever happens to it in the June 12th election. So whatever happens here tonight, it's all going to hinge on what happens with Measure 2 on June 12th. And then the other motion we want to revisit is the motion made on the 19th at the protest hearing. There was a motion made to stop the paving project, but that was made prematurely because we did not know the exact count. At that time, we just kind of looked at a map, and it showed a lot of protests, but in reality, the protests were a minority. So I guess Matt can kind of give you the figures. What was actually the protest against the project and the people in favor of the project. Matt, would you like to give those numbers right now?
Well, the petitions against the project were 48.54%, and the portion in favor or not against the project would have been 51.46%. So I went through those numbers several times to make sure they're accurate, and that's what the information I've given to the council.
So with that information, I guess the council would like to revisit that motion, and I think Bonnie has some comments she'd like to make before that's taken care of.
Good evening. I'd just like to kind of walk us back through what happened at our last meeting. Things happened after many of you left, and I know there's been a lot of conjecture out there about different things, a lot of rumors, and I just thought I'd try and walk us all through it so that we all are on the same page. At the last meeting, it was a special meeting on the 19th of March. We met, and you were all here, and the map was laying over there on the counter, and lots and lots of red X's in it, and we looked at it. All of the council members looked at it, and we were waiting for the engineer to come, and it got to be later and later, and I'm not blaming it on Matt here. I'm just saying that we were all kind of not knowing what we were doing. And so just on a visual basis, we looked at that and said, oh, it hands down the protest is against this. And so I made a motion to cease the project, and Bonnie Doctor seconded that, and it was voted that we would cease the project based on that motion, that information. After that motion was made, the engineer arrived, and he went through the process of counting and came up with the percentages that he just quoted to you. And so what happened is our council made and seconded and approved a motion that was erroneous. Okay? On an ethical basis, we now have to withdraw our motion and our second and open it back up to be re-voted on. That's just the way it is. It could have gone the other way. Had it been looking like everything was positive for it, and we made the motion to go forward with the paving, and then the engineer arrived and counted and said, no, it's a negative, we would, in that case, also have the ethical obligation to withdraw our motions and reopen it up for discussion. Not necessarily discussion. We don't have an ethical or a legal responsibility to open it back up for discussion, however we are. Okay? So that's where that is. In terms of why it was turned around, by state law. Matt kept saying the century code. And for those of you, there's a difference between the two, and I'm not sure what they are. Regardless of what it is, legislated is that the winning vote, if you go purely on the vote, it's by the amount of area that voted for or against. And that's how we come up, or he has come up with the percentages of 51.67, or 46, I guess, to 48.54. I also, it was then after that the council voted in the Measure 2 in anticipation, because we heard everybody talking about, what about Measure 2? What are you going to do? And that was just explained to you by Frank as to what we're doing with Measure 2. You will be given an opportunity tonight to represent your case. It won't be a question and answer situation. Question and answers occurred on March 19th. And the council did hear you very clearly, I think. There were a couple of issues that really came to the forefront. The first one was, well, not the first one, but one of them was trucking, and where would the semi-trucks be allowed to park? That issue came up, and we got to talking in the bar later that there would be no reason why we couldn't consider putting in a truck parking plaza. And Mike is going to talk about that later during our meeting when we come back. A second one, and I don't know what we want to call this. It seems to be referred to as a little old lady issue. And really what we're talking about is people who live on fixed incomes. And I think those are couples, they are women, and they are males. And so it's not just little old ladies, and please don't call them little old ladies anymore, because most of them aren't real little, and we just like to be called older. But it's for the people living on fixed incomes. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due. I received a phone call from Connie Rudnick, and she said, Bonnie, can't we do something for people who are living on fixed incomes? And I said, well, I imagine we could. What do you have in mind? And we just sort of talked back and forth. And I said, let me give some thought to it, and slept on it. The next morning woke up and thought, yeah, we can. We have some city lots that and I don't know that this is what the council will decide, but it is my idea anyway that this is something we consider. And I brought this up in the meeting previous to this right now, I mean like an hour ago. But there's definitely a possibility that we could do something for our citizens, residents, who do live on fixed incomes. It may be a fund that we originally fund through selling some city lots. It could be that we would ask the Anamoose Foundation to help us out with that. There are lots of things that would have to be figured out, you know, application process and who's going to take care of it and all that sort of thing, but because I don't believe it's something the city council should be doing. It should be some other entity doing it. But when you've got someone who can maybe pay their street assessment, but that means they can't paint their house, or they can't shovel their walks, or whatever, then we really need to be looking at how the city can help our citizens who live here. Okay, another thing, we're going to be talking some more about Measure 2. We also will be talking some more about how do we remove certain areas from the project, certain streets and so forth, so that we can get the costs down. Okay, now I'm just going to give you a little bit of a process here for what's next. I'm going to withdraw my motion. Bonnie Doctor is going to withdraw her second. Then Frank, our mayor, will moderate the next part of this evening. Each side of the issue gets a total of 15 minutes to speak. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes, and you will be timed. Primarily, most of the things that have been said have already been said, and we've got a long meeting ahead of us. So, let's see. There is no question and answer session. If after both sides have spoken and you want to stay and just listen to the discussion of the city council, we're going to run it just like we always do at the city council up at the water building, water tower. Plant. Thank you. People come in who want to talk about something. They come in, they sit in their chairs, and we recognize them. The mayor recognizes them, and we take one at a time. This time, because we're here and there's so many of you, and you might have something you want to say, we'd like you to come up to the mic or stand, because we're going to be in meeting over here. It will be hard for us to see anybody raise their hands or stand back there. So please come up to the mic. And by the way, when you are speaking from your side, which I'm going to open up right away, you'll need to come up to the mic and speak from the mic so that everybody can hear you. Okay? I think that's all of it. And at this point in time, I withdraw my motion to cease the street project. And Bonnie Doctor is withdrawing her second. And Frank, it's all yours.
Okay, the motion is taken off the table. It has been rescinded.
Doesn't the whole board have to rescind the vote? Because you guys all voted on it. You all voted on it unanimously, I believe, right? So everybody has to rescind. It can't be, you can rescind your vote, but the whole board has to rescind their vote.
Okay.
Am I correct or not? I'm not sure.
But that's okay.
I'm not sure
Okay,
what
all
vote
in
you guys
favor of rescinding the vote? Opposed? Okay, motion carried. The motion is rescinded. Okay, at this time we'll open it up to the different sides. You heard Bonnie, she said 3 minutes each. And I think the people against have one spokesperson.
Yeah, we'd like to ask for more 3 minutes being the fact that we did not know this was going to be
Right.
a 3-minute time deal.
Right, we understand that. We will give you more than 3 minutes. And I guess if somebody else on that side wants to speak, we'll give them 3 minutes.
Yeah, because mine, we won't need 15 minutes.
Okay. And again, it's not a question and answer. You make your statement. You can raise questions. The council can take note of that, and they can discuss that later. So at this time, I guess, who wants to go first? It doesn't matter.
I would like it.
Okay.
I'd like it.
So at this time, we'll bring Brent forward. He can state his case for the opposed.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, I'm representing the concerned citizens of this paving project. Many unanswered questions have come up, and there seems to be sometimes no answers. Due to lack of information in the last few months, a lot of no votes were cast. Some voted no because they know their neighbors, relatives, or friends cannot afford to pave. Some voted no because they just don't want pavement. Others voted no because it is way too expensive. So a few of us decided to get some facts together to help inform some of the no voters, which we did Friday night. And we had 50 people there, and I asked if anybody had any idea of what their actual number was. And it was a no. And the people, some of them in there thought that letter was what they were going to pay. That was their total bill. We're not going to tell you how nice it would be to walk, ride bikes, or drive on pavement. We all know that. We're going to give numbers, and hopefully you guys want to ask you questions, but I guess we can't right now.
You can raise questions.
We can raise questions, but we'll just get to it. And some of our numbers here, it was tough to get some information on this. Some of our numbers, these are pretty rough, but I think we're pretty close. We know that the paving project is 1.6 million or a little over. Interest, we were told, is 3%, maybe. We don't know if that's a fact or not. Okay, it's not a fact. So I'm going to throw some numbers out there. At 3%, if some people don't pay their stuff right away, it's $530,000 in interest. If it's 4%, it's $725,000. If it's 5%, it's $935,000. A lot of people never really thought about the interest and how much it was going to be. Okay, then we discussed maintenance. We know for a fact $120,000 in the third year. The city did talk, maybe they can pay it, but they gave no definite answer on that. So basically these numbers we're just going to say is we're going to have to pay. 13th year, another $120,000. The city has no equipment for this. I figured $8,500 on a tar kettle deal. And then we talked about a 20-year maintenance deal. I don't know, this might be low, might be too high. We figured $2,000 a year, so $40,000 in 20 years. So that brings a total of $288,500. Like I said, does the city have money to help cover this $288 or not, or do they need to tax us on that? So basically, if at 3% and the $288, we're at $2.4 million on this project already. Okay, city, no taxes will come from the school, churches, or fire department to help pay for the maintenance of this project. There's 183 of us that do. City interest, the city bills $130,000. Interest at 3% would be $43,000, so $173,000 to the city. The school, $62,000, 3% interest, $82,500. The fire department, not so bad, $9,000 interest, $3,000 is $12,000. Be it the school and the fire department will be paid throughout the district, farmers and all. Rough calculation, probably about $5 it'll cost each of us a year for the school and the fire department. Catholic Church, with 3% interest, $27,132. Baptist Church, $13,538. The Lutheran Church, $20,540. That's at 3% interest, which is not for sure. You heard the yes and the no votes. Anamoose had 1,806 footage on this, and the county had 150. If you throw them out and redo the vote, it's 39% yes, 59% no of the 183 people that will be paying the tax. Maintenance-wise, went through that, the city number, school, fire department, whatever. I'm just going to make an example of mine. And mine's not that bad. I'm going to admit my wife and I can afford this. But $5,720 is what we got in the letter. 3%, $1,895. Add on $1,600 for the maintenance, $945 to cover the city's cost. Mine comes out to $10,160 for 20 years. So you got all these little costs, and a lot of people didn't sit down, they sat and looked at their letter and said, well, this is what I gotta pay. That's just the principle of this project. It's not the maintenance, it's not the interest, it's not paying for your church, it's not paying for your school. So it's easy to say yes. The voting part, we made a few phone calls. Some were pretty, yeses were pretty, you know, we made a few phone calls. Marion Kemet, you had a yes, she's a no. The greenhouse, my neighbor, they are doing a deal on deed. The guy who owns the deed got the letter, they didn't see it, they're a no vote. Helen Nolden, a yes. I talked to Jackie. Jackie said it's a no vote. Chelsea Hauser was a yes. No letter, that's all tied up with their lawyer and her dad's estate and stuff. That's a no vote. One of Avery Miner's lots wasn't right on the deal. That's a no vote. Scott Kidson, or the Erman house, he was in Florida taking care of his sick dad. By the time he got his letter, it was too late. That's a no vote. Leland Grossman's house. That one I thought, nobody's lived in that house, but that's a yes vote, something's wrong. I called Joan. Joan said, well, it'll probably be a no vote, but that's tied up with the lawyer with his estate. So some of the voting, you know, wasn't quite clear and right to us. We think it went too fast. It didn't give out-of-staters time. Some did get it back. Actually, a lot of out-of-staters did get it back, and I think there were no votes, but some didn't. That was some of the discrepancies in the vote. So, we're just asking you to take a closer look at the cost of this project and decide by the financial part of it. Not on how nice it'll be to walk, ride your bike, or drive your car. We're looking at how much it's going to cost us out of our pocket. And I bet tonight, if we asked out here the numbers I gave, these people never gave a second thought about it. I know it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Okay, for the other side.
How much time you got left on the nose though?
7 minutes.
We have about 8 minutes left.
8 minutes, sir?
You get 3.
I got 3, that's all it's gonna take. Well, I just want, there's a couple of questions, obviously the same question and answer, and they don't want you to know some of these things. If you look how this has been done, and how underhandedly, why can't we go back, and if they want to rescind their vote, and let's redo the voting process? If that's fair, let's redo the voting process. Now, one other thing. I've dealt with the city council once already. I went to ask them about abandoning an old street in between us. No, they wanted to use that for a bike trail. Well, guess what? I own all those lots back there, so you can't get right away to the bike trail. If you read your minutes, did it say anything in those minutes about what I even came into to talk to these people about? Heck no. The minutes just said that after Pat John left, then we decided that he should keep his fence where it's at. Well, if that's the way you want your city council to work, great. You know what? Empty heads, they're just going to vote yes for it, right? But you know, look how they went about it. Don't you think that as a public entity, that these people are speaking for us? Don't you think they should be a little more informed about how much it's going to cost? Why is Brent Winiger? Because we're having to prove what the
Okay, do we have anybody else?